Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5.
Let's get the top 5 at 5 going. Could be, I think, a fruitful one. Looks like we got some good sound to be a part of it.
And where should we start? What's the A topic? Is it J.J. McCarthy's second procedure?
Let's get it out of the way, yeah.
J.J.?
Yeah.
Well, let's read the Kevin Seifert story because he broke this wide open.
He scooped it.
J.J. McCarthy underwent a second surgery earlier this week, is how Seifert describes it.
Well, that's what's interesting, the semantics here, right? Because he went surgery. Others have said biologic injection. Is that the same? I don't think of that the same way as surgery. I think surgery, they're going in there to clean it up.
I agree.
Okay.
And so that's an interesting semantical game.
Yes.
But here are the first 2 paragraphs that Seifert wrote. J.J. McCarthy underwent a second surgery this week on his right knee as he continues to recover from a torn meniscus, the source confirmed Tuesday to ESPN. Sources described this week's procedure as a biologic injection intended to address swelling in the knee that developed after an increase in activity during the rehabilitation process. Doctors found no other concerns, and there have been no changes to McCarthy's recovery timetable, the sources said, meaning he remains on track to return for the 2025 season. Want to hear from KOC?
Might as well.
Injury in training camp. He's really knocked it out of the park every step of the way, and as his kind of rehab has picked up, we noticed a little swelling in there, and just with the time that we do have, he's been doing everything we asked of him and improving, getting stronger, all those things. But we just wanted to make sure that there was no cause for concern, and all reports were very positive. He's on the original timeline in good shape, and I've just enjoyed as his rehab's progressed. He can be in meetings and spend a little bit more time with us, and it's been some real growth for him. Continues to ask great questions every day, and we'll just continue to. That's the hardest part, when you get the ability to do a little bit more and start pushing through those final stages over these next few weeks. Feel really good about where he's at.
I don't think there's any question that no one has attacked their rehab like he has. No. Nobody has ever done it in the history of sports. Not just football. I'm saying in any sport across the board. I just don't know why we have to try that hard. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm sure.
It's always extra.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
most people, I'm assuming, are pretty dedicated to,
what else is he supposed to do?
Keeping the paces. I mean, especially if they want to play, one would assume. Now, again, I'm sure some are more diligent than others, but I just don't know why it's necessary to take it to that level, because, frankly, for me, then it makes me not want to trust it, because it falls into the classification of it's not worth that kind of verbiage. Just, hey, they noticed some swelling. They decided to do something. Because I don't think people, does the average person go, wait a minute, they had to go back in? Well, he must not be going through the paces like he was supposed to. Is he attacking his rehab? Right. I think most people would say, well, there may have just been a little complication, not that they're automatically assuming that this means that he's at 50% of what they're asking him to do. It's exhausting how hard we work to make everybody feel better about our situation. But go ahead.
The Vikings-Titans practice report is available now. The Vikings did a walkthrough today. They didn't do a full on practice because it is Wednesday. You've got the Tennessee Titans a little bit later this week. And as I pull up the practice report, the computer's not working, but go ahead.
Well, here's the bigger immediate concern. Your guy Darnold, limited. Right hand injury. You'll recall after one of his 7 interceptions.
I don't remember which one.
Which one it was. He tried a tackle attempt, and then he was squeezing his hand after that. He had said then that he was fine. There was apparently no wrap, according to Gessling, on his hand today at practice, but it sounds like it has. There must be something going on there. But I'm sure he'll attack the rehab on it better than any other quarterback other than J.J. McCarthy.
That's what Sam Darnold does.
That's what Sam Darnold always does.
He attacks.
That's what all our quarterbacks do.
You know who attacked nothing last night? Your Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, they didn't.
Losing to the Portland Blazers in NBA Cup group play. So now they're in the NBA Cup meat grinder.
So are we already pretty much all but mathematically eliminated?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. His point differential, I guess, factors into the wild card spot, but I don't know how we're going to win our group. I don't even care anymore. We're never going to win an NBA Cup in our lifetime. I've just been waiting and waiting and waiting, and we lost to Sacramento last year at home. That put us behind. That was a game where they had like 63s. But here's Chris Finch on last night's effort before we talk about the rotation stuff with Paul Allen from earlier today.
I was certainly disappointed with our performance last night. We don't walk on the floor expecting a 25-point win against anybody. It's
right.
That's a process of step by step and play every play and win all the battles at most of the nights. But we knew that they were going to come out with a desperate mindset. They had lost to us by 25. They got beat pretty heavily by Memphis. Chauncey challenged them. Young team, and they're going to respond most nights, and they respond with a bunch of desperate play, and they kind of outcompeted us, and we turned it over and got sloppy and fed it to them, and that's where it all went wrong.
We fed it to them, all right. Anything you want to react to there?
20. I think it was 23, 24 turnovers.
21.
Was it 21? Our third straight game, I believe, over 20. We're one of the worst turnover teams in the league. It's a broken record that we've talked about, but it has to get cleaned up. Look at some of the teams towards the top, too. It's not difficult to see that, there's a lot of ways that a team with championship aspirations confirms its seriousness, right? And some of that is playing defense, certainly. Some of that, you could say, is rebounding, which we're not doing much of. And some of that is valuing possessions in a way that goes beyond, because it's an eye-rolling cliche, right? Everybody says it, and it sounds boring, and it sounds uninteresting, but there is a difference. Even teams that are high-flying, and they move down the court, and they run a lot, where there's going to be you're not going to be error-free. They value possessions, and that's not being clearly drummed into the club nearly enough. Not finishing with Anthony Edwards. I think DiVincenzo had several unforced errors again.
He had 4 turnovers last night, including a couple of high-risk passes, as Coach Finch talked about.
By the way, I think earlier I said, and to add insult to injury, Portland was playing without Anthony Hardaway. No, that'd be Simons. That's a different Anthony.
You had the
different
Anthony.
Spelling. Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And DeAndre Ayton, he didn't play at all, right? He did not play at all. That also is what took place last night. Not unprecedented, but rather embarrassing.
Speaking of Dante DiVincenzo, that was the entree to the talk about the rotation discussion that got some people's attention. And we should mention that Mike Conley is going to rest tonight. They're playing Portland tonight. He will not be a part of those proceedings. He is going to rest tonight. The Veterans Day off has not been playing very well. We've talked about that for the last couple of weeks, but he's going to get some time off tonight. So it was about DiVincenzo playing 18 minutes last night. We already mentioned the turnovers, and that's where this answer kind of gets you to.
I mean, I think, we're pretty comfortable with who he is and where he is. I mean, he didn't play particularly well last night. I thought Nikhil and Jaden were 2 of our better performers. So I thought, that was our route back into the game. I think one thing, we're figuring out, like we got to, I've said it multiple times, and, it's going to have to happen here, is that, we're going to have to expand our rotation a little bit for that to happen. Everybody's minutes are going to come down a little bit.
Good.
And, if you're not playing particularly well, even in a game, it's going to be resulting in your minutes. So that's just kind of a natural, the natural state of things. But, we fully expect him to bounce back and be a huge part of what we do, and as he's been already.
The entire conversation available on the Paul Allen channel of your iHeartRadio app.
Yeah, and again, DiVincenzo was the crucial piece in the trade. The Wolves are not going to make that deal without him. He is a highly coveted wing player. I in no way have given up on him at all. We've seen him when he's gone good, what he can contribute and what he can add. Really, I think at his best in both ends of the court. He had one of his worst games yesterday. Several other Wolves did too. But I hope that the head coach means what he said about not worrying so much about, getting our top 7 or 8 going. Just experiment, tinker with it, but don't do it with like 5 minutes to go in the game. Do it much earlier in the game where those players have a chance to actually make a mark. Now, they may not all make a mark, but I think it has to happen earlier, and I think there has to be a little bit of was what he said. If you're not playing well, maybe you're not going to play as much, and I'm not going to worry about pedigree, and I'm not going to worry about equity. We got a lot of guys who have some ability. So if that's the only way you can get the message across to players who are mailing it in, and they had several, including Julius Randle at key moments last night, mailing it in, then do it.
Wolves back in action tonight, as I mentioned, against Portland, a game you can hear right here on the Fan. Very quickly, the other Wolves news of the day regarding the schedule was that the December 19th game, I think it is, the Karl Anthony Towns return.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Has been flexed. It was supposed to be a 7 o'clock game. It has now been flexed to TNT and will be an 8:30 p.m. Central tip. That was a good candidate for a cage show with Cat's return.
Yeah.
With the Knicks. I'm not sure what the 8:30 tip, if it still is, but there you go. The Thursday game, we got another TNT game, and it's an 8:30 tip Thursday, December 19th.
This one, to wrap up the top five, might come from fallness. I'm not sure. Wild play tomorrow, home game, which I think I mentioned with Louis. It's the Montreal Canadiens. And Kaprizov is on Wild Weekly tonight at 7. Not that JG cares.
I actually loaded in that conversation. Way to mail in the second segment of Wild Weekly, by the way, Fallness. Welcome back to the show. Here's Joe O'Donnell talking to Kirill Kaprizov for 7 minutes. Way to earn that paycheck, buddy. And I loaded that in tonight. So I've heard the conversation. I thought Joe did a great job. And I will be at Wild Montreal tomorrow night with my almost 8-year-old in a Kaprizov jersey. I won't be wearing the jersey. He'll be wearing
the
hockey jersey. So we'll be there. The Fan and 2 men in a junk truck want to give you a shot to put a grand in your hand with our national cash contest. You can enter the keyword deposit at KFAN.com. That's your shot at winning. KFAN.com. Make the keyword deposit.
We can look for a Pat Kessler appearance in studio in about 15 minutes. Charlie from Prior Lake, responding to your top 5 at 5, mentioned that Mike Conley is resting tonight, and he writes, I thought everyone was resting last night, but bump. That's the easy but understandable.
Except the fans that stayed up late in the central time zone to watch it.
Yeah.
We don't get our sleep back.
No, you don't get that night back.
No.
It's unfortunate. What else did I have for you via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line, which is 64686? By the way, we have not heard, no one is reporting yet who will start in place of Mike Conley. Is that correct?
That's correct.
There's supposition and there's some speculation.
Yep.
But we've not heard officially from anybody.
We're waiting for the Finchy pregame availability, which will be in a couple of hours. And by the way, you've been going with 23 turnovers for the Wolves last night.
Yeah.
That's the number Alan Horton tweeted out.
Right.
The box score is saying 21.
21, okay.
But not that it matters.
Over 20 is the key, and that's too many.
Yes, and it's a streak of
isn't
20
it like
plus turnovers.
3 games in a row with 20 or more?
Yes, according to Horton, which is the longest 20-plus turnover streak since 1995. We remember those teams.
We do remember
those were some teams. Yeah. The Jimmy Rogers era. J.R. Ryder.
I mean, you could say the sign of progress is we didn't live and die each game with those teams because no one game mattered in that era because it wasn't a serious franchise.
Correct.
On the other hand, that's what happens when you get more serious, then people are going to pay more attention to what you're up to, and those numbers are not serious numbers. If you are a team that, in fact, what should be maddening about it is you're not even giving your talent a chance to realize its potential. When you are, my anger is there's an arrogance to it. Like, we're so good.
Definitely.
It doesn't matter. I dribbled it off my foot, or I dribbled to the sidelines and I boxed myself in, or I just gave up the ball. It's a big deal. I'm going to come down and make another play the next time. We're not that good. We're not the Boston Celtics. Frankly, we're not the Dallas Mavericks. We may not be the Cleveland Cavaliers at this point, who may never lose.
Yeah. How about
that club?
They're pretty solid.
Well, that's a sign there, I think. We always wonder about, does coaching really matter? They made a coaching change. I think Atkinson is the guy now there.
Yep.
And I don't think there's any question he has changed a number of things, especially emphasizing different players' offensively, they've been a juggernaut. That's why they've been as successful as they have been to this point. And I haven't watched Golden State. They're off to a great start, right? And They are playing literally the entire roster. Now, I don't even know the makeup of their team regarding their bench, but it is an interesting window into different philosophies. Because it's this league is set up in a way where allegedly it's hard to play a bunch of guys, but I don't think it is. I think it may be hard to play, 10, 11, 12 guys every night, but I think you should be able to play extra numbers and maybe even different numbers some night. Now, I get rhythm and I get people, players, they want to know what their pattern is going to be to a certain extent. But I definitely would like to see these guys liberalize that. And I think, as odd as this sounds, the way they've started should be liberating to the coach to say, I can't worry about history. I can't worry so much about pecking order or, he mentioned how much he regretted not playing Rudy in the last minute of what game of that was the Miami game, the last possession. And he probably should have had him out there. On the other hand, again, I don't think I'm less concerned about losing my mind about that. I'd rather even err on the side of, well, yeah, maybe I should have had that guy in the name of I'm gonna throw out different people, different combinations, not for the hell of it, but because there I think is deeper. There's more talent. There are more possibilities here. Where once upon a time you say, well, I don't want to see our last 3 or 4 guys. The guy who I'm beginning to worry about is it might be a complete waste is who's the down under veteran?
Oh, Ingles.
Ingles. I'm beginning, and he's been a clever player. He's been a good versatile player in his career. He's had a role
for sure.
But I'm beginning to think that's the guy where you go, well, why is he here?
Yes.
I really do. Now that might be also unfair to him.
Yeah,
maybe he needs to see a 7 or 8 minute stretch again, depending on matchups, whatever else it might be. But part of the assumption is the younger players on this team probably aren't as ready for a full load, right? Even if they're good. That's probably fair this early. But you assume the one thing they are going to be is eager. The one thing they are going to be is committed to the bit, whatever that might be. That doesn't mean they're not going to make mistakes. But again, if your veteran lineup is turning the ball over 25 times a game, how much worse, how much sloppier can the young guys be with the ball than that?
It's true. If you're worried about sloppy play and unforced errors, you're getting that right now from your vets. I'm just looking at the standings because some teams have started the season, are ready to go, and haven't had the sloppy
Oklahoma
losses.
City included.
And they've got an injury now they're going to have to deal with.
Yes.
Phoenix is 9-2.
Phoenix is off to a great start. They got a point guard. They finally figured it out, Tyus Jones.
However, I think I saw Durant has a calf thing that's going to mess with him for a couple of weeks. But again, they've given themselves...
Did you see the meltdown he had with, who's their big man? Name will come to me in a minute.
Is that Nurkic?
I think it's Nurkic, and there was a viral piece of audio. I don't think it was... Now, again, it could be AI. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Could be somebody having fun with it, but it sounded very much like during a timeout or during a break, he basically gets in his face and say, we're a team. Pass the bleeping ball.
Yeah.
We're a team. Did you see that one?
I did see that circulate. I didn't watch the video, but I saw that headline.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Remember when everybody said Denver was done?
Right.
They've won 5 in a row.
That's it.
We woke them up.
We felt really good about them until they leapfrogged us.
Golden State's 9-2.
Yeah.
Houston Rockets are 7-4. You can't
sleep in this conference.
You cannot half step.
No.
And so you can't drop these games to these loser teams. Can you tell I'm annoyed?
No,
it's really bugging me.
Well, and again, Miami's better than that.
Yeah,
but Miami still didn't have their full complement of players.
Correct.
And that's another game you can't lose.
You're at home with a lead with 4 minutes to go.
No, you can't lose it. There's no question.
Anyway.
Things
are fine.
Well, no, I mean, there's reason to be annoyed. I don't think it's over. And I wonder if Louis thought I was hinting that maybe it's time for Finchy to go, because he immediately went to the changing coach's card with his own career as a general manager, even early in a season. I'm not suggesting that, but I would like to see a heavier hand. I'm not going to lie. I would like to, and to me, it's not what he says. It's what he does about, I'm pulling this guy out, or I'm playing this guy an extra 7 minutes here because I like what I see. That, to me, is more important than Finchy after the game saying, well, we got to get this done, or I'm disappointed here, whatever the case may be. I want to see him during the game coach in a way that sends that the urgent message that you're talking about, that I can't mess around here now. So you've given me the opening to dabble. You've given me the opening to experiment a little bit and throw a couple other people out there, maybe a couple other combinations out there, and let's see how it goes. It might be disastrous. There is that possibility, but that to me is the door that's been opened, and he needs to bust that damn door down. He really does. Speaking of busting the door down,
he's done it every break since he's been here.
He's
ready.
He's back to having too much time on his hands because he's retired again.
For now.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll unretire in a few weeks too. Pat Kessler is in the house. He will join us in studio. A very eventful day. The president's made some president-to-be, some interesting cabinet picks. His attorney general selection is the one that's getting the most attention. I would put it under the classification of we might be done as a society, but as Kessler tells us, elections have consequences.
I wish the American media would take a great look at the views of the people in Congress and find out, are they pro-America or anti-America?
Pat Kessler.
This is Pat Kessler.
Got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
I can't trust Obama. He's an Arab.
Pat Kessler.
This is Pat Kessler reporting.
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Pat Kessler. And now, to help Dan break down all the tough questions in politics, it's our own Pat Kessler Political Walk.
That was so good. That was TV gold. That was TV gold right there.
I don't remember that one.
With Dan Barrero.
Is that recent?
On the Fan.
Hey, we were talking about Mason Your Face apparently is on his way to an exotic Caribbean island free of charge. He's like a made man now. It's unbelievable. You're going to be doing your own traveling, the Fan has learned. This weekend, you will be attending Vikings Tennessee Titans. Is that correct?
First time there. It's going to be incredible.
It's way too Nashville's way too trendy, in my opinion.
It is?
Yeah.
I'll be at the Grand Ole Opry.
I knew you would.
Is that too trendy?
A little bit, yeah.
Now, come on.
The permanent +1 hits the road again, huh?
On the road again.
Chuck Foreman's headed to Nashville, too.
I would love to
him.
meet Chuck Foreman.
He's doing an appearance Saturday, 1 to 4 at a bar called Will Hagen's Bar. Is that a famous one? Will Hagen's?
They're all famous in Nashville.
Don't you should go see him.
I absolutely
You've never met
will try
him.
to do that. I would love to meet the guy.
Yeah. Big Chuck, big meet and greet.
Well, I'll be going up and down the Avenue, Broadway, in Nashville. I'm going bar to bar. Let's just put it out there.
You've already declared too that if the Gophers return to the Pinstripe Bowl, you won't go.
Stop it! I never said that.
Oh, you didn't say that? Oh,
what did you have against New York? We had a great time.
That's what I thought it was New York.
You ditched me there too. Remember when you left? I thought we were going to hang out after the Fox 9 pregame show, and you purposely left.
Well, you were on your way to a comedy show or something.
Hours later, and you
How
left.
was I supposed to know
Because
that?
I told you, and before the show was even done, you just left without even saying goodbye.
Come on, Mim, let's get out of here.
Let's leave before the show's done, and then we can't hang out with Gaardsy.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That's kind of the way that I looked for you at the Pinstripe Bowl, which I think might be the worst venue for a football game I have ever been to.
Well, it's a baseball stadium.
I loved going to see the baseball stadium, but I mean, what the heck?
The mistake you made was thinking that lower meant good seats. You got the closest that you could, and that was a mistake.
I sat behind the storage.
You weren't
lockers.
in a suite?
I sat behind the storage.
How did that? That doesn't even seem possible for you.
I know.
I'm very surprised in your case that was the case. By the way, we got a lot to get to in the world of politics today. I want to read a couple of tweets to introduce this subject and then get your reaction to them. Hold on a second. Here's a couple of them. This is from somebody named Glenn Thrush, New York Times.
Yes,
DC
I read Glenn Thrush all the time.
Thrush?
Yep.
First day of since the election where everybody's been forced to adjust their watches back to Trump time. Thought Thune was news of the day? Wait for Rubio or Tulsi. No, Gates. And it is only 6 p.m. On that same point, let me get to never Trumper lefty or righty Stephen Hayes. Trump ran on retribution. Nobody sounded more like Trump than Gates campaigning in Wyoming against Liz Cheney, etc. Attorney General would be the place to weaponize government to exact revenge. So, yeah, it's absurd, but is it really surprising? Is it fair to say that of all the announcements thus far, the one that seems to be, even among some Republicans, on a plateau all its own, is Matt Gaetz as Attorney General?
All he does is win. Matt Gaetz, Attorney General. We are not making this up. The president-elect announced this on Truth Social just a couple of hours ago. I came into today, Dan, thinking the biggest story of the day is going to be President Trump's triumphant return to Washington, left as a pariah, comes back as the conquering hero. I thought that was going to be the biggest story of the day. So reading that tweet from Glenn Thrush is very interesting because absolutely, I'm remembering now that every couple of hours, there would be another news story that would supersede the previous one. That is what happened today. So yeah, let's start with Matt Gaetz. This is a guy who is disliked perhaps almost as much as Ted Cruz. Certainly.
Even among Republicans.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
This is what I'm saying, that he is not popular. He is on the fringes of the far right. He's not even far right. He's on the fringe of the far right with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who might as well be Secretary of State compared to Matt Gaetz.
To be determined where she ends up.
Absolutely. And President Trump has appointed Matt Gaetz. Remember that this is a guy who is still under ethics investigation, but is someone who, in fact, was investigated by the Justice Department for sex trafficking. For 3 years, he was investigated for this. The guy he was doing this alleged activity with is in prison now for many years. He has not been charged with a crime. Matt Gaetz is a very powerful Florida Republican congressman. What I like about him is that he's got no blankety blanks to give. He will do anything, has no shame. He's the guy who upended Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, put the House of Representatives on hold for a long time, perhaps the staunchest defender of Donald Trump, which is the reason that he was selected for this. I do want to say about Matt Gaetz, he's extremely intelligent, very articulate, entertaining, funny, and somebody who just doesn't care if you are an establishment Republican. He's going to go after you. So he's the guy who is ending up to be the Attorney General for this reason. Donald Trump wants to end, and he said this today, he wants to end what he calls weaponization of government. This is the Attorney General who will do what he wants, unlike the previous Attorneys General, someone who will investigate anybody from the Biden family to the generals, to anybody who has crossed Donald Trump in the last 4 years. Nancy Pelosi, it could Chuck Schumer, it could be anybody. Adam Schiff, he's named Adam Schiff. This is the one, the Attorney General choice that would do the things that Trump asks. So there are many Republicans. We're not even talking about the Democrats. There are many Republicans who are really, really wondering if they're going to have to walk the plank on this one and support him.
All right. I'm reading another tweet. This is from the editor of National Review, Philip Klein. Matt Gaetz will not be confirmed, but his nomination instantly sets up an ugly war between Trump and Senate Republicans that was completely avoidable. Now, we know how Trump has tended to operate, so...
Very provocative.
So if we're playing we're trying to figure out the strategy here, he's got to know that. But does he still want the battle? There's been a lot of discussion about forcing some of these through, what's the term for it?
The recess appointment.
Yes, recess appointment.
Yes.
Is that the game he's going to play here? Because I don't think there's anybody who thinks he's got any chance to be approved in the normal nominating process as Attorney General.
I'm not sure of that. I think that when the president-elect wants somebody to be in his cabinet, I think that it's very possible that the Republicans will say...
They'll go belly up.
Absolutely. I think this one is pretty extreme and extremely provocative and bold. And the mainstream Republican leaders, the new ones in the Senate today, I think they're very concerned about it. But I think ultimately they may end up voting. If they do not, and let's explain what a recess appointment is, they will recess and go home for the Easter break, the spring break, let's say. During the time they are recessed, the Constitution allows President Trump to appoint whoever he wants. This is a 250-year-old part of the Constitution from back in the day when the Congress didn't meet as often, and it took a month to ride by horseback to get there. So they thought it might be a good idea, allow the president to do this. When Trump ended his term 4 years ago, nearly half of his cabinet was recess appointments, acting members. So, yeah, I mean, that could be a possibility. I think he has the right to get who he wants, and I believe that this is somebody he wants pretty badly.
Lisa Murkowski, who is a Republican out of Alaska, I don't think it's a serious nomination for the Attorney General. That's Lisa Murkowski's view, speaking of herself in the third person, like Herschel Walker used to do. We need to have a serious Attorney General. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to consider somebody that's serious. This one was not on my bingo card.
Surprised everybody.
Yes.
You know, it was shocking. So Murkowski's one. You might have Susan Collins, who is someone else, but they have 53 votes. They only need 51. So, you know, what do you do with it? This will be a test of the new Republican leadership to see if they are independent of the executive branch or if they will do what Donald Trump says. And all the records, all the history says they do what he wants.
Lil Marco has been appointed. Why
would you say that?
Well, that's what he used to call him, right? Back in the day, wouldn't hire him to do any of his run any of his smaller businesses.
That is correct.
Let alone the larger businesses. So Rubio, Secretary of State. What does that potential appointment, what does that portend?
Well, the timing of it was kind of interesting because he is absolutely qualified. He is someone who has a lot of experience on the world stage, served on committees where you deal with foreign affairs, all of this. So that is well within the bounds of political selections for something as important as Secretary of State. There will be some really, really difficult things that he's going to have to deal with, including the war in Ukraine, Gaza, all of the things that Biden's dealing with right now. So I do believe he would be, even if you disagree with him, if you're a Democrat, you might end up voting for him because he is absolutely within the boundaries of a mainstream world leader, Secretary of State.
Yeah, of the names that have been out there, it's like double A ball compared to what some of the others ones
and very popular here in Minnesota.
Yeah.
People forget that in 2016, when Donald Trump was running, he won the Minnesota Republican primary.
Rubio
the
did.
Caucus. I mean, yeah. So he's popular here.
So there's a local angle too. One of the Hegseths, I think, either this Hegseth or his brother, I don't remember which, ripped me years and years ago on Twitter. I don't even remember what I said or I tweeted. It's from another lifetime. You know, he has. I'm sure he's got no recollection of any of that. It was I was just kind of like, you know, a stray. I think I got caught in a crossfire of some kind of battle going back
on
and forth.
social media. Yeah.
On social media. So we're on the national stage here. Pete, who is Pete Hegseth, and what has he been nominated? What position? What cabinet level position has he been nominated for?
One of the most popular Fox News hosts, and Donald Trump loves that. The dude is really handsome. He is all tatted up. You know, he's all man. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that Donald Trump likes about him is that he looks like a defense secretary.
How is this a defense secretary supposed to look? I guess
just like that.
Like that, okay.
Well, come on now.
All right. Manly.
He's all man.
Tatted up.
He is. So he's one of us.
Okay.
He is one of us. He's from Forest Lake, Minnesota.
Right.
Grew up here, attended Princeton, Harvard. I mean, he's really, really smart. So he's a combat veteran. He has 2 Bronze Stars, served in Iraq and Afghanistan in combat. So you can't question his military experience. It's his policies that might cause some trouble, including that he doesn't believe women should serve in the military in combat roles. He thinks that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs needs to be fired because he's too woke, and says that the Joint Chiefs chairman, General Brown, I think his name is, would never have been appointed if he was not black. So it's the DEI stuff, but it's the provocative stuff that he has said on Fox that is going to cause some issues. Now, for Donald Trump, the woke stuff, the DEI stuff, that is right in his wheelhouse. But this is also someone who is going to have to address a couple of Donald Trump's most important campaign priorities. One is Ukraine. Are we going to pull out of Ukraine, supply Ukraine with the weapons? He's going to be in charge of that. And the other is potentially the use of federal troops to round up illegal immigrants and deport them. That will be part of this, too. So there are many, many things. This is a sprawling department. The Defense Department is the most important, perhaps, for national security, world security that we have. Hundreds of thousands of employees. And Pete Hegseth has never run anything like this, but he is...
He's hosted a TV show, though.
He's done very, very well at it. And he knows, he doesn't know how to run an organization, but I think he cannot be sold short because he's been in the military, he's been all of this. Does he have more qualifications than, let's say, William Cohen in the Clinton administration, who, his experience is Congress. I mean, what experience do you need?
What actually qualifies you for the size of that job?
If depending on what side you're on this, but that one is the one where a lot of military people are really, really, really concerned about Pete Hegseth. In the whiskey tango foxtrot way. You know what I'm saying?
612 guys mad at you.
Oh, here we go.
Kessler's funny. Like Biden didn't appoint who he wanted, and the Senate rubber stamped his picks. All presidents pick who they want. What do you say to that?
Didn't I just say that?
Well, kind of.
Yeah, I said that Donald Trump will very, very likely get who he wants. And if he doesn't get it in a vote, he will do it in a recess appointment. I absolutely support. This is who America elected. You're getting who you voted for.
I think the point he's making is this wouldn't be the first president-elect who selects people that they want, right? That they feel are going to be loyal to them. Now, we can argue about whether they're qualified. I would say Hegseth isn't 100%, but I think... that to me isn't just about Trump, is it not? Every president-elect is going to
absolutely.
Add the people
who are you going to appoint? Your enemies?
Right.
I still don't understand the question. There's one thing I'm talking about the Republican reaction to this. That's one thing politically. It's the policy stuff and what you're going to do. Donald Trump should have the right to put people in office that he wants.
However, to an extent, there is an advise and consent role that the Senate plays, correct?
Let's talk about this. This is the Constitution of the United States. In order to have a separation of powers,
correct,
the president has the power to appoint people.
Yeah.
In a separate branch of government, the Senate has the power to say yes or no. And they can do that. Will they do it with Donald Trump is the question.
And you think even with Gates they will? See, I don't think they will on Gates.
Gates is one that I'm not sure how
positive,
that goes. Yeah. But I think if it's going to be Rubio, absolutely.
Yeah, I think Rubio's
Hegseth,
likely.
Possibly, probably. What are they going to do? Vote down President Trump's nominees? I would think that politically it's more likely that they just delay it and recess for a week and see what happens. Who knows where this is going to go because everything is changing every hour with the new
How about our new head of Homeland Security? Tell me about her.
That's your gal, Kristi Noem. That's an unusual one. I mean, let's just hope that there are no stray, rambunctious puppies around. Kristi Noem is most famous to Americans, unfortunately for her, most famous to Americans, the South Dakota governor, for writing an autobiography and putting in there about the time she took their 1-year-old puppy who was untrainable in her view and too rambunctious and aggressive. So she took him out to a gravel pit and shot him, killed him. That kind of took her off the vice presidential list. She was on that list. President Trump, I think the absolute common theme with all of these is loyalty. She has been extremely loyal. She's been an absolutely fine governor for the state of South Dakota. What does she know about Homeland Security? This is, again, going to be about immigration. This is going to be about people coming into the country. Are you going to stop it? She's in charge of all of that kind of stuff. Will she be in charge, for example, of setting up camps, as President Trump is doing, and wherever it's going to be, looking for people, putting them in there, and then deporting them? I think people want a change in America, and we'll see if she'll go that far. Is she qualified to run this department with how many? 200,000 employees, 250,000 employees? This is one of these things. They want to abolish the Department of Education. Maybe somebody ought to take a look at the Department of Homeland Security and abolish that. I mean, what is that?
Where is RFK going to land?
Another one, President Trump should have the people around him that he wants. He has said repeatedly before the election, this is what he wants. He might end up being somebody called the health czar, maybe the vaccine czar. He will be a health czar who will look into all of the things that happen. But these are people who may not be confirmable. So the White House will be filled with people who are unconfirmable. He will probably just have a portfolio in the White House. He has said he wants to look at fluoride in water, wants to look at the dangers of vaccines, particularly in children. He wants to look at the FDA, which inspects our food, the CDC, which is in charge of health. He will have a wide-ranging portfolio. And again, this is somebody who Trump wants and somebody who is pretty well steeped. You can disagree with him, agree with him, but he knows his stuff, even if you may disagree with his conclusion. So again, this is something that was very clearly telegraphed, not just telegraphed, said out loud, this is what I'm going to do when I'm president.
Let's get a pause in. I want to talk about what you originally thought might be the A topic today, the Trump returning to Washington, as you say, the conquering hero, and visiting the White House today, I believe.
How about that?
He and I think his new press secretary, along with Biden and his press secretary. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Walsey coming back home. A couple of other things on the docket as we continue with Mr. Kessler. 64686, that's the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Very funky. Right, Pat Kessler?
Yeah.
So what do we know about how it went at the White House? The future president hanging out for how long with the current president? Were there any uncomfortable viral video moments? Was it in and out pretty quick? What was it like?
Yeah, again, this is, I waited and waited. I really wanted to see this happen. President Trump, as we all know, left the White House in a huff because he lost the election. He never invited Joe Biden and Jill Biden to the White House, never extended them that courtesy, never conceded the election, did not attend the inauguration. And 4 years later, he leaves as a pariah, let's say. 4 years later, he comes back to Washington as the conquering hero. In pop culture terms, he went from Otis to Andy in 4 years. So it's just a remarkable American story. It's a consequential historical event we witnessed today. He goes in there. There is no scandal that we know of. He was gracious, according to reports. He was charming. He was cordial. When he went in, President Biden said, "Congratulations." They shook hands. He said, "Welcome back to the White House." And that was just for the cameras. And, oh, man, people are shouting and crazy, and the cameras are going nuts. They shook hands, and then they met privately for 2 hours, which is longer than President Obama met with Trump when he had the transition meeting. So they talked about a number of things. The reports coming out of there saying that Trump came with a list of questions that he really wanted to know more about. Now, remember, he has not had intelligence briefings for months. People were worried, including President Biden, that he was going to leak some of the stuff or use it for something. So we had many, many questions. They would not reveal what they are. At one point, they brought in the 2 chiefs of staff, Susie Wiles, and then the President Biden's chief of staff. So they did all that. But everybody describes it as very, very nice. It was very symbolic to show that we can have a peaceful transfer of power. And that was important to Biden. And it was important to Trump to show that, hey, I won and I'm back. So I think it was pretty cool to see, just because 4 years ago it was cray-cray. So I don't know. I think it was pretty cool. Well, so there's a lot of norms that are being busted, right?
Yeah, and realistically, several more to come, for better or for worse, depending on who's responding. You're kind of getting it from both sides here. City Streets guys
now what?
Now mad at you.
Oh, come on, man.
He's coming at it from the other side of the political block. Here's what he writes. I'll give you a chance to respond.
Sure.
Kessler is doing, and this is one of these buzzword terms that's become very trendy, very performative. Kessler is doing a great job sane washing the absurdity of these cabinet selections. We understand Donald Trump has the right to select who he wants. It's one thing to explain how the process works and Trump's rationale for the selection is fair. This is the most gong show unqualified cabinet possibly in United States history. We will be slipping into chaos with half our journalists reporting on it like it's a Sleepy Friday status quo news dump. That's City Streets guy. So the first segment, you're getting hammered from the right. You're being more critical than you would be of Biden appointees, and you're not giving him a chance. Here, you're getting savaged by Jets guy and the other side of the political saying you're doing too much of that sane washing.
I love that word.
You're normalizing a number of these picks. So I guess the moral of the story is you can't win. But do you plead not guilty or guilty on the sane washing?
He's charge? Not wrong. He's not wrong. You're talking about sane washing, and we're normalizing this. What have we been doing for the last 8 years, people? How much of this, if even a fraction of this, if this had come up 10 years ago, people would say this is disqualifiable, that you can't run for president. We are so numb to the breaking of norms here in this country that it almost doesn't matter. This, I don't think we've even seen, if you want to call it crazy, is this 715 guy, whoever it is?
This was City Streets guy.
Oh, City Streets guy. Yeah. Thank you for the comment.
I don't know what area code.
And City Streets guy, I mean, honest to God, we have become numb and normalized everything now. This is going a lot. This is very, very, very provocative. I don't disagree with you.
But I would also say respectfully to City Streets guy, if he really did listen to the first segment, I'm going to go out on a limb, a precarious limb, and suggest that there was more than, quote unquote, as much as I know folks on his side of the aisle love the term, sane washing going on in the way you described several of the individuals that we were talking about. So we can that's where it all depends, once again, on, I think, whose ox is being gored. You're not seriously telling me, maybe you are, speaking of sane washing, or insane washing, that the governor of the state of Minnesota has serious aspirations about running for president in 4 years. Are you? You're not telling me that there really is any belief that there's some validity to that, is there?
Well, the naming newspaper of the United States, who names all of the candidates,
yes,
the great name speaker, the New York Times, puts him pretty high up the list.
Plaid Dad?
Of the Plaid Dad as someone who is absolutely interested. Now, you look at the bench
interested,
for the Democrats.
I could see.
Yeah, you look at the bench of the Democrats, and they've got a deep bench because the candidates...
Do they?
They do. They have and I think the Republicans do too. The problem is you've got two 80-year-old guys running for office, Biden and Trump. And so the Democrats and the Republicans have not had a really good opportunity to showcase their candidates. Now, just on the Democratic side here, the New York Times mentions a number of governors, but at the top of the list is Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And it says in the story today in the New York Times, there is little question that Mr. Walz's ambition extends beyond Minnesota. How about that?
Good luck to them both.
He failed to stem Harris's losses in rural areas. He is well liked by fellow Democratic governors and congressional colleagues, and he signaled on Friday. You remember that speech? We all tuned in for the big speech.
We did?
Tim's return on Friday. We all tuned in for that.
Okay.
He is going to remain relevant in the party, and he's going to be fighting Trump. He's going to be fighting Trump here, and that will get him a lot of mentions. But, you got Pritzker. You know me. I love governors. Whitmer in Michigan, Pritzker in Illinois, Newsom in California.
The one place I'll agree is
Buttigieg.
Somebody said that I think you got to get as far away from Washington as you can, and I think that does mean your best chance is governor as opposed to senator. Or, more likely senator than House. I think that should be the goal. Wherever you go, the goal should be get away from Washington as far as you possibly can.
Amy Klobuchar. She would be another one. And you're absolutely right about this. I believe that once you get into the governor area, the level of governors, and many of whom might want to run, they've actually run budgets. They've put together budgets. They've run states. They've plowed the highways when there's the Halloween blizzard of 91. Remember that one?
Kind of.
Yeah. So, they have to keep the water clean. They have to keep the schools going. Governors are the way, and you go into the middle of the country, and I think those might be some of the best.
By the way, so the final numbers, first of all, we don't have a lot of time, but you can put me in the camp that believes it's downright absurd that this many days after the election, not all the votes are counted. There is no world in which, to me, that is a functioning system. Now, in this case, it's irrelevant because it's not going to change the outcome. But imagine if it might. Imagine that the vote totals were different. This makes, and I think this is mainly California.
It is.
There's no, in my opinion, possibility that in this country we should be incapable of tabulating votes sooner than we are. And we, as I said, I don't know how many days we're still out, but we're still a ways away from everybody being counted up in California.
Days. Yeah. It's almost 10 days. I agree with you. This is a little ridiculous. In California, the individual counties have a lot more power over the counting of votes and the sorting of it. And they go home at 5:00 and they go home for lunch and they take weekends off. I think it's ridiculous. You've got a state like Florida that I think we got the results of Florida
in 10 minutes.
Yeah, within the hour we had the results. And you're right. In this case, it doesn't matter because we know now that Congress is going to be controlled by Republicans, the House and the Senate, and there's a Republican president, and that's all. There are enough votes.
What about our state house? What's the final verdict, House and Senate?
It still is going to be 67. There are two recounts: one who won by 12, and one. They're both Democrats. One who won by, I'm going to say, 300. We don't expect those to change. They might, but right now it's 67. So that looks like that's the way it's going to be. But you're right. When they did all of this hand-wringing and pearl-clutching over voter integrity and refining the vote system, why they didn't do that, I mean, come on.
It's all doable.
Yeah.
Last question.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know why 20 million fewer voters voted in 2024 compared to 2020? Is that intensity of interest? Is that, well, I'm just checking out? Or what is that? What's the message from that number?
It's so interesting that Kamala Harris got fewer votes than Joe Biden in many, many of the Democratic strongholds of Detroit, Milwaukee, Chicago, San Francisco, all of these places. And Trump upticked just a little, just enough. But it comes down to this. People were not interested in Kamala Harris, the Democrats. I'm talking about Democrats. And so you have a situation here where there are fewer people voting. And we talked about undecided voters week after week after week on this program. It wasn't that they were trying to decide between Harris and Trump, although many of them were. They were trying to decide whether they're going to vote or not. And many of those Democrats
obviously
did not come out.
Yeah, right.
And Donald Trump did everything possible.
So that's part of the story.
Absolutely. He increased the number of black voters for him, black male voters, young people, women, suburban
Latin
people.
men.
Yeah, black men,
Hispanic
all of us,
men.
only by a little.
Right.
And she won a lot, but many, many Democrats just sat on their hands and stayed home.
What's the next step for Royce White?
I believe that he is already thinking about running for office again.
Okay.
And so the campaign begins today. How about the campaign for president? When does that begin?
Oh, God, don't even.
Should we start that now?
Oh, it is. It's starting.
Well, is Gaardsy in or not?
Did you see the story about your guy Newsom? He on a flight carrying his own bag back to coach.
It's so good
to set a certain message.
He'd
about
be
he's one
walking
of the
by
people.
me
Yeah.
on the way to the Vikings game.
Well, definitely because we know you're in first class.
Why wouldn't I?
Yeah,
be?
that's
No, I'll go back.
Nashville included.
Yeah,
you ain't gonna sit with the peasants going to Nashville.
Maybe
it's a
I don't
long
know.
flight.
It is.
What is it, like an hour and 40?
Yeah,
that's a long flight. Yeah.
Is it that long? Dang
May
it.
not be in that long.
All right.
I don't know. Thanks for coming.
All right, see ya.
Buckle up. Kessler, are you re-retired or not?
All depends. I mean, we're not going to have an insurrection. We had the election.
Yeah, well.
We're not going to have the insurrection.
Not yet.
That I think, unless Antifa does it, right?
Yeah, unlikely, I think.
And so now I just wait for...
You wait for the next shoe to drop.
Yeah, here we go.
Pretty much it.
Wherever.
What kind of legacy do I leave? I just did the best job
to me.
Show Wrap brought to you by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
Quite a show today. We were joined early by Glenn Mason. If you missed our conversation with him, that was between 3:30 and 4. Mason, your face. We eventually got around to football, but not much. Louis at 4:30. And in Louis' case, we didn't really talk that much pro or college hockey because I got Louis into some really good stories related to the way he went about his job and very honest revelation on his part that he once did not hire a coach that he should have because he felt so close to that coach. He was worried about eventually having to fire him. That's my tease. I won't name you the coach, but he's prominent. And I thought that was interesting. Also got into some Herbie Brooks stuff, too. So there's always good history with Luigi. And then Kessler on a rather eventful day in the political world as well. So that's the combo platter today. Tonight is Vikings X's and O's. And then it's Fallness's Wild Weekly, in which apparently Kaprizov is the guest.
Second segment.
And then it's the rematch. Wolves-Blazers on the flagship tonight at 8:45 The Wolves without Mike Conley, who's going to sit this game out. No word yet on who's going to start officially. Is that correct?
I haven't seen anything, no. Pre-game availability probably in an hour or so.
Tomorrow is Thursday. That means Dr. Dan's inbox will be opened. It will mean Russo Radio will return.
From the X.
That's right. It's the Montreal Canadiens tomorrow night on the Fan. And then Sean Salisbury is scheduled to join us earlier in the show, probably about 3:30 or so. So that's the lineup. It's a good one. Kind of rainy out, right? Kind of misty, but at least not snowy.
That's what I'm holding on to.
Again, it's remarkable.
November 13th.
The Barrero rule on winters in Minnesota, pretty obvious. Get to December 1 without a huge blanket of snow, and I think you at least got a shot. Don't you? A chip chair and a shot. That's what it's all about.
I have no
issues. It doesn't start early November with that blanket and never leaving. It's December. And if it was up to you, it wouldn't snow at all.
Yeah.
That's how little you care about the Christmas spirit.
I love the Christmas spirit.
Well, the Christmas spirit has to have some atmosphere. Has to have some aesthetic backing. Not according to you.
Agree to disagree.
All right, fair enough. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Please join us.
Whenever you want me, I'll be
Good luck.
Whenever